Hi, all. This is your professor Ian Jones. Just checking in with you midweek in week 2 of the course. I just want to mainly check in and talk about the work you completed for last week. I've gone through most of it. As of right now, I'm just more than halfway done the reflections. I've done everything else. I'm just working through the reflections right now. So I thought I'd just take a minute and record a brief video. So let me just say, first of all, I'm super impressed with the quality of work everybody's doing. Everybody put in a real effort reading the material last week, engaging with it, doing all the assignments. It was almost 100% completion rate for everything. I'm always a little bit nervous teaching a summer or a fast track course because we have such a brief time together. You all need to hit the ground running and really start into the assignments that very first week, right? Because we don't have a lot of time together. So you've been doing a great job with that. So congratulations. Let me just talk specifically about some of the activities we did last week. So the introduction forum was great. A lot of great conversations. I didn't get into the mix with anybody, because everybody's having such great conversations. I just stayed out of it, so it was great. That worked out really well. It was nice to learn about everybody in that forum. In the syllabus discussion assignment, everybody seemed to get a handle on Perusal very quickly. I told you it's a pretty easy program to get used to. There were some great questions. I answered some of them, and some of them will be clarified as we move through the semester. Specifically, I should note that this week I'll be posting stuff about the pop culture uh, group presentation project, telling you what group you're in, and then we can take it from there. So I'm going to post that Thursday. I'll post stuff about that. Okay, so that was the syllabus, intro syllabus, the readings. It was good to see people referencing the readings, my video lectures and the chapter from that textbook that I posted. The readings are separate from the perusal assignments, so the readings are up to you to do whenever you want. Hopefully, you get a good amount out of them. It's going to give you the context to really approach some of the primary texts that we're talking about in the perusal assignment. So please do keep on top of the readings, the video lectures, and anything else I post. So the readings, the flip grids were great. Everybody shared their thoughts. I love how people talked about, this very recurring theme about that people brought up about how myths are, tales that pass down through generations, and they're meant to explain things that defy rational explanations, and that's why they're passed down. So that's, a lot of people touched on that theme. That was great. There were some great conversations. I loved the conversation I noticed that Carlos and Randy were having about the use of myth for persuasion and political reasons, like to put forth and support a political agenda. You're going to see that a lot, and we're going to talk about that because myths aren't just neutral stories that get passed down. There are reasons that certain myths get passed down. Specifically, a good example of this is, when we get into week 4 and we talk about the heroes and heroines of Greek myth, you're going to see a very lopsided um, uh, presentation of figures, right? Because the big heroes of Greek myth are all male, right? There are some female heroine figures, but they're not talked about as much. They're not as famous. They're not as passed down through the generations. And you have to think about, why is that? Why is it that Greek storytellers really emphasize the masculine hero rather than the female, right? So there is like a kind of political aspect to mythology and the passing down of myths as well. So I like that point that they were discussing. With the flip grids, remember to interact with each other. Post your own flip grid, but also comment on someone else's. You don't have to get into a big conversation. That's great if you do, but even just to say, hey, I love your idea about blah blah blah, just to be supportive of each other um, in that way, because that's what the flip grids are supposed to be for, right? To touch base with each other face to face and get that human interaction that is missing in other uh, parts of an online course, right? You're going to interact with each other in Perusal, but also Flipgrid is supposed to be more human in that way. So that's a Flipgrid. There's also that ungraded quiz. There will be one of those every week just to help you think about some of the concepts from the readings and the primary texts. On the quiz that people did, a lot of people didn't get the question about the afterlife correct. That last one, true or false question, the Greeks, I can't remember how I phrased it, but a lot of people answered that the Greeks did have a very well-defined idea about the afterlife, which is similar to our contemporary ideas, and that's not true, especially of early Greek mythology. Later on, when Greek culture spread and changed and adapted to different cultures, they got more into ideas about the afterlife, and things like the mystery cults really spread, became popular as people wanted a way to think about what happens to them after death, and that became more important or more pressing for political reasons. It's hard to spread a culture if you don't have a good idea about the afterlife, a culture and religion. But especially early Greek mythology and religious systems, there wasn't really an afterlife that we would think of. There was, you would go to the underworld, but it was not the same as we would think of as like heaven or hell. It wasn't. It was just a place where you were like I'm trying to remember the phrasing in the Odyssey, but you're just like scattered to the wind. You're like a gray leaf scattering in the wind. It's not the same as we would think of as an afterlife. You don't get to go sit. If you're good in this world, you don't get to go sit by Zeus, right? And it's interesting to compare the Greeks and the Egyptians too, because the Egyptians had a very complex idea about the afterlife. They have like half a dozen gods that are related to the afterlife and weighing your soul and all this kind of stuff. Whereas for the Greeks, they had mostly Hades, and Hades is almost never talked about. He almost never shows up in any of the myths. So it's just an interesting, maybe mindset that the Greeks had about um, achieving glory in this world rather than thinking about an afterlife. So that was the quiz, the reflections. I told you I'm working on them. People are doing a good job on it. If you're struggling with the reflections, one really good way to approach it is think about what they call a golden line. So choose one line from the text that we read, from one of the texts that we read, and just concentrate on that and really get specific. Because with the reflections, it's really good to be specific in your answers. That's really going to help you think through some of the ideas. Okay, that's about it for now. So I just want to touch base with everything that was completed last week. I'm posting this on Tuesday evening before I go to bed. Tomorrow I'm away from the computer. I will answer emails on my phone, but I won't be available if you were hoping to drop by office hours or something. So that's about it for now, and have a good day.